Good morning, church.
Good morning.
In case you're wondering, I'm Jeff Lee. I'm your newly arrived bishop in residence / interim rector for a time. And anything else you want to append to the end of that, I could give it a try. I'm delighted to be with you. I've heard so much about St. Paul through the years, and I'm finally here. It's a joy to be here and to stand in this place with all of you. So good morning. When I was 6 years old, I had an accident. On the kindergarten playground on a sunny day in the middle of January, I fell on some ice and damaged my front teeth. I didn't know how bad it was. For a while, I pretended it didn't hurt, and I kept on playing, but when the bell rang and I went inside, my teacher took one look at me, blanched, and called my mother. She came right over, similarly blanched at the sight of my mouth, and took me straight away to the dentist. Only then did I begin to cry. A reaction to the dentist, I have to say, that I have not entirely outgrown. My dentist did not blanch when he looked at my teeth, but he said they would have to come out right then. Well, the crying started in earnest then. My good dentist reminded me that I was a big boy and that there really wasn't anything to be afraid of as I sat there looking at all the dental paraphernalia on his little shelf. He stood there, he looked me straight in the eye, and he said, "Come on, this isn't going to hurt a bit." It was at that precise moment that the terrible realization first dawned on me that adults could lie. And I have to tell you, in the light of our political environment in this country these days, I'm not unconvinced that that is over for me. My mother, who was a wise woman, however, took over at that instant. She led me out into the waiting room and she told me the truth. "This is going to hurt some," she said. "But if we don't do it now, it's going to be a lot worse and you might lose your big teeth too." She told me the truth. Didn't stop me crying, but she did tell me the truth. You know, much of what passes for religion in our world, seems to me, is an attempt, sometimes thinly veiled, sometimes not, an attempt to convince us that it's not going to hurt a bit. That this life, doesn't have to hurt a bit. That God and a relationship with God won't hurt a bit. And when religion does that, it turns itself into a lie. I wonder if the temptation to turn the Christian faith into a kind of extra strength religious Tylenol stems from too many well-intentioned early conversations that never get a chance to grow up. Most of us know the scenario when the precocious 4-year-old comes to us with one of those questions. Why did Mary's cat die? Where is God, Mommy, really? And we, the flustered but caring adults, tend to respond with some answer about God and fluffy clouds that we may intend to be comforting, but are things that we don't really think we believe actually ourselves. I'll never forget the look of horror and then relief on the face of a young mother in a parish where I was serving when I told her that I thought it was okay to tell her endlessly wondering 5-year-old daughter that her mother didn't know the answer to her hard questions about God. I said, tell her the truth. That it was all right, in fact, better for mom to admit to her daughter that she had the same questions herself. So they were having one of the sessions when the why questions just kept coming. Mommy, why this? Mommy, why is God? And Mommy, why? And her mom said to me, this young mom said, I got so frustrated finally because I didn't know what else to say to her. And I said, well, why don't you tell her, I don't know, Beth. And so she tried it. Certain that she was being a terrible mother at the moment. She said, Beth, I don't know. And that little girl took her mommy's face in both of her hands and said, "Mommy, let's ask God together." That little child heard the truth from her mother and opened a door. Life, dear friends, life is full of unanswerable questions, is it not? I got to tell you something. I don't know if these exist in Ohio, but they do in Illinois on country roads, particularly roadside billboards that scream at us, "Jesus is the answer." See one of those? Jesus Christ, dear ones, Jesus Christ is not an instant remedy for the pain and ambiguity of life. In the scene in today's gospel, Jesus asks his friends, "Who do people say that I am?" And Peter, good old Peter, predictably enough, gives the billboard answer. "Why, you're the Christ, God's anointed one. You are the answer, the greatest. God has sent you, Jesus, to make it all better." And Jesus' response to dear Peter is strange. He doesn't deny what Peter says, but he tells all of them not to tell anybody about him. He tells them not to put out any bumper stickers or billboards. He says to his friends, "No billboards, please." Jesus uses a very different term for himself than Peter's. Jesus doesn't refer to himself as the Christ, Christos, God's anointed one, the official religious answer. No, he calls himself the Son of Man. One of us, truly human. And he says that he, the Son of Man, must suffer, must be rejected by all the proper religious people of the day, must even suffer death and be raised. But not until he suffers and dies. Friends, in 12-step recovery processes have a great way of talking about this. They tell the truth too. What they say is there is no way around. Jesus is saying the very same thing this morning. There is no way around. There is no way around the addiction. There is no way around the heartache. There is no way around the terrible mistakes I've made in my life. There is no way around, but there is a way through. There's a way through those things. Jesus is that way. Peter is horrified by what Jesus has just said to him, and he takes Jesus to task. "Jesus, how could you say such things? That'll never happen to you. You are the answer." And in some of the harshest words attributed to him, Jesus tells Peter to get out of the way. "Get behind me, Satan. You're not on God's side. You're on the side of human beings." I like to think the one bumper sticker that we might put out is this: Jesus is the question. Who do you say that I am? He's still asking us. A theologian I know wrote these words: "We didn't crucify Jesus because he was God. We crucified him because he claimed to be God and then failed to come up to our standards for assessing the claim." A lot of us, I'm one of them, really like to be a little more spiritual than God. You know, if I live up here in the clouds, God has entered this life, the one we know all too well, this world. We don't want, typically enough, at least I don't, want to be saved in my humanity. I want to be fished out of it. Snatched out of the pain, out of the suffering, out of the uncertainties. I want to be snatched out of those things. And that is the one thing God seems to refuse to do. Instead of snatching us out of our humanity, God has entered it with us, and it makes all the difference. This life has more than its share of hurts and heartaches. The world in which we live has teeth. And the Christian faith is not an escape hatch. It is not a holy insurance policy against disaster and pain. Far from it. And that's what makes following the Christian way so challenging and so genuinely life-giving. It isn't an escape from life, this way of life we embrace. No, it's not an escape. It's a way of living in deeper and broader and truer ways than we can imagine. Following Jesus isn't like the White Queen in Alice in Wonderland, believing 6 impossible things before breakfast. It isn't about tending polite religious facades. It isn't about living in religious illusions. It is about facing the truth of our lives, with all the pain and the joy, all the mess and the occasional glory. All of it. Facing who we really are and knowing that there is no pain, no fear, no hurt, no hard question that God has not already embraced in Jesus. There's nowhere we can go where God is not. There's no hurt. There's no terror. There's no bad news. There is nowhere that God doesn't already know from the inside out. God never lies to us. I always like to say to parents and godparents who are bringing typically a child to the waters of baptism, I like to tell them, remind them, we don't lie to people in church. We try not to. After the candidate for baptism is washed with water, we sign that person to remind them who they belong to. You are sealed by the Holy Spirit in baptism and marked as Christ's own forever. And we do not sign them with a smiley face. We sign them with a cross, and we tell them the truth. This is going to hurt. Living is going to hurt. Life, any life worth having, will hurt, at least sometimes. And love, oh, mystery upon mystery, anything worthy of being called love surely contains within itself at least the possibility of agony. Anyone been married here for longer than, say a year? You don't have to raise your hands. Of course, it involves struggle. Of course there is pain. Of course there is joy. And without the pain, there might not be the joy. So God doesn't lie to us. This life is going to hurt. Living hurts. And it means giving up control, following the Lord Jesus Christ. Giving up control to really live means letting go of our lives in a very real sense. It means nothing less than dying a little, dying to my illusions about myself. And I'll bet you my illusions about myself are not that different from some of yours. I'll bet. You know what they are. At least these are mine. That I can do it all on my own. That's my favorite one. That I have it all together. That I can be the perfect father, grandfather, husband, bishop, friend, and on and on and on. That I can be young and beautiful and healthy forever. Too late. That if only I acquire enough things, I'll be safe. That I can neurotically keep everybody happy and knock the socks off of every single solitary member of this parish. I am going to try. I'll probably fail. And of course, if I'm going to live, really live, I have to give up being fixated on all of those things. Put them on the cross, Jesus talks about, and let them go. I have to let it all die so that I can be raised to something new. And that's why we are here. That's the whole purpose for all the activities of this transitional time in this parish. It's the reason for these walls and this altar. It's the only justification for budgets and pledges and programs and rectors. That this might be a reliable place where that strange mix of joy and pain, hope and despair, called life, can be brought and shared with fierce honesty. where we can learn to let go of our lives together, let go our illusions about life, knowing that it will be costly and even painful, but standing together week by week by week in the faith of the friends of Jesus. That if we die with Christ, we will surely be raised with him. Blessed be the God who gives us this life, real life. And blessed be God who calls us all to life that is unimaginably new.